Hi, everyone. Let's move on to stories. What I saw in the hospital basement made me believe that some people are scarier than death. I don't know why I'm writing this, maybe just to get it off my chest, so that at least someone knows that on that night, in the basement of the county hospital, something happened for which there are no suitable words in our language, and that the new attendant, whose name was Vadim, was not human. My job isn't for the faint of heart, but I'm used to it. I'm a morgue attendant. Night shift. There's even a certain charm to it. Silence. Peace. No one bothers you with stupid questions. Just you, the hum of the cold chambers, and your clients, who are no longer in a hurry. The work is simple. Receive a body, fill out the paperwork, put it in a chamber. Sometimes I help the pathologist, but that's rare at night. I had worked alone for the last 3 years, and I was completely fine with that. So, when the head of the department told me they were giving me a trainee, I wasn't thrilled. An extra person, extra small talk. But an order is an order. On my first shift with him, he appeared at exactly 9 in the evening. Tall, thin, and so pale, he was almost blue. He looked to be in his 30s. He was dressed in a perfectly ironed white coat that seemed a couple of sizes too big. Vadim, he introduced himself and held out his hand. His hand was ice cold. Not just cool, but icy, as if he'd been holding it in a freezer. But what struck me more was his smile. It was wide, friendly, but absolutely motionless. The corners of his lips were stretched, but his eyes, two dark, empty wells, remained completely indifferent. Oleg. I shook his cold hand and immediately wiped mine on my pants. Well, welcome to our kingdom of tranquility. He nodded, and his smile didn't falter. Thank you. I've read a lot about this place. A strange phrase. What could one read about a district hospital morgue? We started the shift. I showed him where things were, how to fill out the logs, how to work the lift. He picked everything up instantly. He moved almost silently. His hands never trembled. He didn't flinch, didn't wrinkle his nose, didn't ask stupid questions. The perfect employee. Too perfect. And there was one detail. It's always cold in our basement. The temperature stays around 16 degrees Celsius. I always wear a warm sweater under my coat. Vadim, however, was in a single thin coat over a shirt, and he seemed completely unaffected by the cold. He didn't even produce vapor when he breathed. I chalked it up to a strange metabolism. I chalked a lot of things up to that on that first night. The first client arrived around midnight, an old woman, a sweet old lady from cardiology. Vadim and I took the gurney from the sleepy nurses, and I started filling out the documents. Vadim stood silently by the body. Well, Grandma, your suffering is over, I muttered, more out of habit than with any real meaning. She loved lilacs, Vadim said quietly, not taking his eyes off her face. A large bush grew under her window. Every spring, she would cut branches and put them in a jar of water. I froze, pen in hand. How did you? Just a guess. His smile widened for a moment, revealing teeth that were too white, too even. She has that kind of face, peaceful, as if she's there now, in her garden. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. I quickly finished the paperwork, and we put the body in the chamber. I tried not to look at Vadim anymore. I convinced myself it was just a coincidence. Dark humor. A trainee's attempt to make an impression. Anything. It sounds insane, but at that moment, I desperately wanted it to be something normal, something explainable. But then, about 2 hours later, as we sat in our little office drinking tea, I was drinking, he was just holding the cup in his cold hands, he did it again. An interesting case in Chamber 7, he said, looking at the wall of numbered cells. A man, 42 years old, fell from scaffolding at a construction site, but he wasn't thinking about the pain. I was silent. He was thinking that he didn't get to tell his son he loved him. They had argued that morning, over something trivial, over grades. I slowly put my cup down. We had received the body in Chamber 7 before he arrived. A construction worker, an accident. I had filled out the papers myself. In the relatives section, it listed a son, 15 years old. Vadim, stop it. My voice was hoarse. This isn't funny. Funny? He looked me directly in the eyes for the first time. His pupils were dilated despite the bright lamp. Oleg, I never joke about work. Work is very important. He said it as if he were explaining to a child that 2 + 2 = 4. Calmly, methodically, without a shadow of emotion. And that fixed smile. God, that smile. I realized I hadn't imagined it. Something was deeply, fundamentally wrong with this guy. I decided I would ignore his nonsense. Just do my job. But he seemed to be waiting for just that. The next night, he started humming. A quiet, simple melody. No words. When I asked what it was, he replied, "Just a tune, stuck in my head." An hour later, they brought us a girl, a car accident. She was about 10. When the nurse handed me her personal belongings in a bag, a small heart-shaped music box fell out. I picked it up. My fingers turned the key on their own. The music box began to play, the exact same melody. I stood there, thunderstruck, staring at that cursed music box. A lump formed in my throat. I looked up at Vadim. He was standing in the corner, watching me. His smile was gone. For the first time. His face was like a wax mask, empty, lifeless. "A coincidence," I whispered, either to him or to myself. "There are no coincidences in our world, Oleg," he answered quietly. "There are only causes and effects." After that, he smiled again, and I wanted to run away from there without looking back. I realized I couldn't ignore it anymore. This wasn't just a weird guy. This was something else, something terrible. I waited for morning, feeling as if I hadn't slept in a week. My hands were shaking. Every word Vadim had said echoed in my head. I decided to act. As soon as I got home, I sat down at the computer. I needed to find out who he was. I accessed the hospital's internal portal. The security was full of holes, and my old password from HR, which I wasn't supposed to know, still worked. I searched for Vadim. I didn't know his last name, but he should be the only one in our department. The system returned one result: Vadim Igorovich Sneshin, hired for the position of morgue attendant 2 days ago. Status: trainee. I clicked on his personal file. The screen opened to an almost empty page. Name, date of birth, registered address, a non-existent house on a non-existent street. There was no photo. In the referred by field was the name of the head of the pathology department, Boris Markovich Feldman. And then a cold sweat broke out all over me. Boris Markovich Feldman died of a heart attack a year ago, right at his workplace. I myself helped carry his body away. I leaned back in my chair, trying to catch my breath. This couldn't be. A system error. A glitch. Someone was playing a joke. But who? And how? I feverishly started digging further. I checked the hiring orders for the last month. There was no Vadim Sneshin there. I checked the employee lists. He was nowhere to be found. He existed only in this half-empty, anomalous file, created by a dead man. I realized I was trapped. I couldn't go to the current head and say, my partner is a ghost who was hired by another ghost. They'd have me transferred to the adjacent psychiatric ward the same day. I was alone, completely alone. And I had another night shift ahead of me with him. That night, I went to work as if to my own execution. I brought a small consecrated cross from home that my mother had given me. It wasn't that I was religious, but at that moment, I was ready to believe in anything. Vadim was already there. He was standing with his back to me, looking at the row of cold chambers. "Good evening, Oleg," he said, without turning around. "We'll have a lot of work tonight, a magnetic storm. The elderly don't handle it well." And he was right. By 3 a.m, we had 3 new clients. 2 from cardiology, 1 from neurology, all elderly. I worked on autopilot, avoiding looking at Vadim, not engaging in conversation. I felt like a mouse under the gaze of a boa constrictor. He, on the contrary, was more animated than ever. He moved around the morgue like a conductor in an orchestra pit, commenting on each arrival. "This one wasn't afraid of death," he said, closing the chamber on a portly man. He was afraid of being forgotten, that no one would buy his paintings. Foolish. His paintings were beautiful. "This woman waited her whole life for love," he whispered, covering a withered body with a sheet. And it was right there beside her, but he never dared to tell her. He knew them all. He knew their fears, their hopes, their secrets. He spoke about it with a light, business-like sadness, as if reading reports. I couldn't take it anymore. "Who are you?" I blurted out when we were alone. He slowly turned to me. His fixed smile seemed like a crack in the fabric of the universe. "Me? I'm just an attendant. Same as you, Oleg." "Don't lie," I was almost shouting. "You know everything about them. You. I couldn't find the words. "I'm just observant." He took a step toward me. I stepped back, my back hitting the cold metal of a table. People leave so much behind: echoes, thoughts, feelings. They float in the air like dust in a sunbeam. Most people don't notice them, but I do. It's part of the job. He took another step. I held out my hand, which was clutching the cross. Stay back. He stopped. His gaze fell on the cross. The smile on his face grew wider, uglier. A cute trinket, he said. Does it help you feel safe? Do you think the world is that simple? Good, evil God, the devil? He laughed quietly. The laugh was dry, like the rustling of old paper. It's all much more mundane, Oleg. He reached out his icy hand and touched my cross. Nothing happened. It didn't hiss. It didn't burst into flames. He just took it between two fingers, twisted it, and let it go. See, just metal. The power isn't in it. The power is in you, in your faith. And you, Oleg, you don't believe in anything anymore. At that moment, I understood what true animalistic terror was. Not the fear of death, but the fear that the world is not structured the way you thought, that all your ideas about reality are just a children's fairy tale. What do you want? I whispered, feeling my legs give way. Me? Nothing. But you? You need to see something, he said. To understand, to stop being afraid. Come on. He turned and walked toward an old iron door at the far end of the room, a door that hadn't been opened in 20 years. It led to an old archive that had flooded back in the 90s. Don't, I rasped. There's nothing in there. Oh, there is, he turned, and a wicked glint flashed in his dark eyes. There are answers in there. He opened the door. It gave way with a deafening screech. A smell of dampness, mold, and something else wafted from the opening. Something Swedish, nauseating. He stepped inside and looked at me. It wasn't an order. It was an invitation. And I, as if mesmerized, followed him. It was dark and damp inside. The light from the corridor barely penetrated. Shelves lined with rotten folders ran along the walls. Water sloshed on the floor. Look, Vadim said, pointing to the wall. I looked. At first, I didn't understand. The wall was covered in some kind of dark spots. But as my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I saw. They weren't spots. They were photographs. Hundreds, thousands of small photographs glued directly to the concrete, and all of them depicted people, sleeping or dead. I couldn't tell. What is this? My voice trembled. Echoes, Vadim replied. Memory. Everyone who departs leaves something behind, a small piece of their life. I just collect them, so they are not forgotten. He ran his hand along the coat wall, and I saw that his fingers glowed in the dark with a faint phosphorescent light. Under his touch, one of the photos became brighter. I saw a face, the face of that same old woman who loved lilacs. She was smiling. I do no harm, Oleg. His voice sounded almost gentle. I am an attendant. I just clean up what's left. I see them off. I help them to depart completely. I stared at that wall, at that endless, horrifying herbarium of human souls, and felt my mind cracking at the seams. But why me? I asked, and this question seemed the most important of my life. He slowly turned to me. His smile was gone. His face became serious, almost sad. You are not like them, Oleg. In you, there is a very loud echo. It's disruptive. It's causing interference. I had to see what it was. He took a step toward me. I backed away and stumbled over something on the floor. I fell, hitting my back hard. You are very tired, he said, looming over me. You have been seeking peace for so long. He reached his glowing hand toward me. I can help you. I'll just remove this noise, and you can rest. Forever. I screamed. I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the icy touch, but nothing happened. I opened my eyes. I was lying on the floor of my small office. An overturned cup of half-drunk tea lay nearby. The morgue was quiet, empty. Vadim was nowhere to be seen. I jumped up, looking around frantically. The door to the archive was locked with a rusty bolt, as always. I ran to it, yanked it. It was sealed shut. It was a dream, a nightmare. I had fallen asleep at work, and I dreamed it all. From exhaustion, from stress. I laughed, hysterically, with a whimper. Of course, a dream. What the hell was a collector of souls? I went back to the office to clean up the broken pieces, and I saw my phone on the table. The screen was on, the gallery was open, and the last photo. It had been taken a few minutes ago. It was me, asleep, my head slumped on the table, and behind me stood him, Vadim. He wasn't smiling, he was looking directly at the camera, and one of his hands was holding my phone. The other was touching the back of my neck, and his fingers were glowing in the dark. The phone fell from my hands. I looked around. I was alone. But I knew that wasn't true. I looked at my hands. On my fingertips, where I had touched the shards of the cup, beads of blood were forming. They weren't red. They glowed in the dim light with a faint, phosphorescent light, I'm looking at them now and I understand. He didn't take anything from me. He shared.